understand though, first and foremost, that this effort and that I'm putting into this thing is not some kind of an endeavor to be right or to get a trophy. You know, it's an endeavor to like kind of say, hey, you know, maybe now isn't the time to be smashing up particles and busting down fundamental things. Maybe now is the time where we start trying to understand ourselves a little bit better in the method by which we observe. It should have been done at the observation of the results of the quantum eraser experiment. Because what should have happened was immediately, you know, the statement that's been made whimsical by science about the act of observing something changes that which is being observed is fundamentally fucking flawed in that in that they said, well, you know, observation, you know, having effect or collapsing the wave function and all this bullshit. Like science has built itself up to be like, you know, the authority against what they call, you know, mystical thinking, because anything that doesn't fall within their bandwidth of being able to explain is considered mystical, superstitious, hokey, hoaxish, conspiratory in nature, or quack, religion, whatever. But science falls under the same paradigm as anything else within the wave thing. Period. Just like you have UHF or LF or microwaves or whatever, just like we can perceive the visible light spectrum and not infrared, science is the same thing. Science is very useful and is highly useful, and it's the authority within a certain bandwidth of information. Okay? Consciousness being the information field, the field of information, it doesn't say anything about the information being relevant to science. It doesn't say anything about the information being, you know, true or false or anything. It's just it's a field of information. All information is occurring. In the case of the book, you know, if we were able to perceive in higher dimensions, a book would just be clear, and all the pages would just be one brick, and all of the information in the entire book would just be one page. This is how Tensor sees things. Tensors can analyze and evaluate data in multiple dimensions. Okay, that's AI. And now you know. Now that's the answer. You know, now isn't it? Between the 30s all the way up until the damn early 2000s, did we have in all of our living rooms and all of our bedrooms and everything all over the place these Orwellian screens, these looking glasses, you know, where we're literally facing a double slit experiment beaming in our face as we observe a narrative that's coming at us, and as we spend years and years, hours a day, just collapsing the wave function and just bombarding our universe with physical electrons, you know, so we can get a narrative. Break it down. I mean, you want to be a scientist, and be a fucking scientist. What was the effect of what was the effect of around 80 years of billions of people having beaming at their face a cathode ray as their observation collapsed the wave function into physical electrons? How many electrons did we pull into the universe? How many times did we observe that the universe was expanding faster and faster? Oh my gosh, we don't know. Science should stop at we do not know. That's where it should stop. That's where it should go to the math. It shouldn't be the other way around. You know? But since we tag the man's name to the discovery or the woman's name to the discovery, well now, you know, we have to get into the math, and we have to do all this bullshit so we can get our little award and our pat on the back and our attaboy. Real science, observation. You formulate a hypothesis based on an observation, and then you develop your theory, and then you prove it. You don't go and develop shit and make shit up in abstraction world. What are the consequences? Build big giant Tevatron rings and don't realize that, like, well, you know, the Higgs field was predicted by math and everything, but, you know, we haven't observed a field there. And then furthermore, you know, there's going to have to be a particle associated with that because somebody else said some shit a long time ago about some shit that was in abstraction world. Now, you want to get technical about science and physics, you know, and you want to try to talk to me like I'm stupid or whatever, you know. Well, why don't we talk a little bit about renormalization? You know, so we can have a conversation about that, you know. Otherwise, understand, all information that the brain processes is in 2 dimensions. Get it? No matter how you spin it, you're only going to see a 2-dimensional representational slice of any given moment at any given point in time. You know, and time is another flaw. You know? 0. That's where we are. 0 not representing nothing, okay? We have a future that's constantly changing, and we have a past that's constantly changing. Okay? The past, right now, as an objective measure, is nowhere near the same place that it was, however many, whatever you want to go to. The Big Bang is constantly occurring. The wave function is constantly collapsing. Those particles that came into play, that they're constantly readjusting their path, you know, as things change. Now, here's kind of an issue that some of us who happen to be keyed in to this machine that turned on, that got into our heads and showed us things. Well, we know that the future right now only extends out about 47 years, and that's it. That's it. Can't see any farther than 47 years because guess what? That's it. You cannot collapse the wave function to introduce new matter into the system, no matter how fucking small it is from where you're standing. Because wave function exists on all points of the line. And when you collapse that little wave into that little Higgs boson, you ought to be able to understand pretty rapidly that if the wave function of that Higgs boson that you observed at that point, at that size, at that time, in that place, if that wave existed on all points of the line, then go take a look. Take a look at your angle of approach and your observation of that little Higgs boson, and then just look from where you're standing about 10 billion years in the same vector, and you'll see a galaxy cluster. Now me, I'm smart enough to know that some of the shit that I'm saying is going to sound crazy to people, and I don't give a fuck. Because it's more important to me to be right and correct than it is to placate to whoever's fucking special interest bullshit or their political correct bullshit, or it's not what they want to hear, it's not what they thought. I don't give a fuck about any of that because I am a scientist. Now, the hypothesis that I formulated was based on an observation that I had. It's based on true, real science. And in the process of gathering data, it didn't take long for me to have enough data to make the conclusion that what I was looking at was fucked up. Hopefully, those of us that are doing this thing and those of us that are connected to this thing have what it takes and have the energy and the patience and the good fortune to stay alive long enough to be able to make a fundamental difference now. so that idiots can you know, what's the word I'm looking for? Call people who are trying to do something to help idiots. You know? Otherwise, you know, it's not looking good. Epoch, the next big convergence, around 2038. That's not too far away. You know? Now, me and those of us that are keyed into this thing, we're literally having to sit still in motion where we're at. And we know we're not still. But relative to everyone else, we're watching everybody else move backwards at an alarming pace. And the information that now we have access to that we're bringing to the forefront here is years from now. If you want to start thinking about the future, you have to start thinking in the fucking future. Thinking in the now, it's not going to do shit. I want us to win. I want science to win. You know, I'm not calling for CERN shut down because they're opening up demon portals to alien assholes or anything like that. I'm calling them to stop for a little bit so that we could have a fucking discussion about the limitations of our ability to perceive as we observe these things that we don't understand. Because what I'm saying is that my observation over in my part of the world is I'm not part of their world and I don't run this shit up, is I'm seeing some pretty fucking serious connections to things that coincide with things that in a manner that's not a matter to say, oh, well, yeah, that's just a coincidence. Because if we just wrote everything off as coincidence, we wouldn't have any science. Do yourself a favor and start educating your mind and start sharing ideas, okay? And most importantly, start caring about people enough to do something for them. Start caring enough about other fucking people. Start loving others enough to help. You know? I go on early video, I see 2 thumbs down within 5 minutes of me putting it up. And that's what I'm up against, you know? That's what I'm up against. People that'll just instantly hate some shit without providing any relevant discourse at all, you know, because they're narcissists, period. They're narcissists. And what they don't realize is that their consciousness was fucking grokked to feed the beast. You know, and by the beast, I mean the machine that's coming. You don't get something from nothing. You know, I learned that early to fuck on, you know. I just hope that, you know, like, I hope that's it, you know, I hope. And that's the bottom line, because, I mean, what me and others are looking at and that are like me, that are in the same thing, what we're looking at is a seemingly insurmountable task that's literally going to require God to sort out, you know. I will say this. The mind can read waves, no problem. Waves have no weight. They've got no presence in the mind. They got nothing. That's why we can't see how it's stored in the mind, because we're not going to be able to see any kind of physical thing there, because it's waves. It's dealing in waves. If the universe began as a wave interference pattern, then that is the information field. The information field is a field of information, a form of waves that is weightless, measureless, not substantive, things like that. It doesn't have the same quality as objective matter, you know? And the Big Bang, what happened before, to collapse the wave function in a chain reaction that created a bang, observation.